you have decided to be a game master for whatever reason. Maybe you maybe you're like me and couldn't find a group to play with. You decided to create one of your own. Maybe you're like hundreds of others who has a dungeon master who's a little bit burnt out and who wants to take a little bit of a break. We need to go this way a little bit after that. So we're gonna make a bridge and then I'm gonna have the road meander a little bit around. But for whatever reason you have decided to become a dungeon master or a game master, depending on the system. Dungeon master is a D&D term. So if you play any other system, it is a game master. Because... and... you have gone on various sites online that all keep telling you that being a dungeon master is so much work, it's so much pain, it's so annoying, and people wish they didn't have to do it, and you are starting to feel a little bit scared. I am here to tell you that it doesn't have to be that way. It's not actually that scary. You don't actually have to do all the work yourself, and you don't have to be scared of burning out. Now, of course, burnout might still happen. You might take on too much. You might decide that you want to do all the things all the time, and you still burn out. I have done that several times. But my burnouts have never actually been from the story or the prep or anything like that. It has mostly just been taking on too much. Which is one of the main dangers of being a dungeon master. You have all these excellent ideas and you want to implement all of them at all times. That's a brilliant thing. It's amazing ambition to have, but it is also going to land you in a lot of trouble, both with your own health and with what you want to do with a campaign, with what you set out. Like, not all campaigns, not all one-shots, not all things you want to do fit all kinds of themes. And that is the main thing. Prepping for a campaign very much hinges on the type of mood you're going for with the campaign, the theme, like the players you have, the setup, and those are the things that you need to decide on first. One of the mistakes I made as a baby DM, like for my first campaign that I ran, was over planning. Like, I had the whole city they were in plan, the whole region they were going to explore for the first session. And then my players were like, nah, we're not gonna do that. That whole thing that you have prepped and planned, we're gonna do something else instead. And I got stuck because I wasn't experienced enough to shift gears. I kept doing that over and over and over again. I kept over prepping. My main advice when it comes to being a game master is one that I learned from Brennan Lee Mulligan, who is one of my main role models when it comes to GMing, etc. Only prep enough so you know, so that you can improvise the rest. Because you don't need more than that. If you prep too much, you're just going to burn out because your players will inevitably do something that you did not plan for. It's just going to happen. And if you try to control the narrative to such an extent that it falls apart because your players did something that you didn't plan for, you are going to burn out quickly. And after I took that advice to heart, only prepping enough so I could improvise the rest, things have gone so much easier. Because players are chaos gremlins. They're gonna do what they want to do. And you really should not want to stop that. If you leave yourself space to improvise, you're gonna be way better off. But unfortunately, what you need in order to improvise the rest is going to differ from Dungeon Master to Dungeon Master. I love doing research. I love putting data together. I love doing all of that stuff. And so I do extensive research on areas my players gonna be in, the enemies they're gonna encounter, the dungeons that might be there, buildings and NPCs and all of that. And then I write maybe a paragraph of session notes. Maybe. If you know the location, if you know the setup that you want, if you know the NPCs that you want to have there, be they friend or enemy, you don't really need anything else. If you know what your NPCs are all about, like their values, their goals, things like that, you know how they will react to whatever shenanigans the players come up with. The second point about being a dungeon master and how to make it fun for everyone. Boundaries. Now, I know that a lot of people groan about consent lists and how it's like, I've seen literal people, and I'm so happy that it's not my players, but I've seen people complain that consent lists have ruined D&D. It kind of falls into the prep thing. If you know what your players want out of a game, yay! You don't have to actually try to read their minds. They have told you. They have literally told you what they want out of a game. So sending out consent lists not only let you know what boundaries your players have and what you can do to make your players have fun in the game that you want to run, you also have an idea of restrictions that you have to work with. The consent list is fun, or it's a great tool, but limits change. Boundaries can change. And which is why you need to talk to your players at all times. If something comes up that might be difficult to deal with, that, like, in general, don't surprise players with things that might cause pain. Sometimes players discover limits in game that they didn't know about before. Yeah, I've had that too. Not exactly at my table, but I've talked to people who discovered that they had limits that they didn't know about before the game started. The response there is not, well, you didn't say it. The response there is, all right, gonna wrap this up now and move on. Because that's the thing. It's supposed to be fun for everyone at the table. I find a consent list to be an excellent tool because if you have to think about your limitations as a dungeon master, I have found that I get more creative. If I have limitations, I have to think around those limitations. Hi. Be prepared to adapt when players, I'd say almost inevitably, discover that they have some limitations that they're not willing to compromise on. And that is fine. You as a dungeon master need to adapt to that. And if you're not willing to adapt to that, well, don't be a dungeon master. Boundaries, both in the sense of a consent list and in the sense of what the setting allows for, can create some very cool storytelling. You want to make your characters uncomfortable. You want to make your characters fear for their lives. You do not want to traumatize players. The traffic light system is another really good tool. I normally run with, because all of my games are online, I normally have that, like, I will ask players if there's something that's coming up that might be a bit sensitive, even though it might not be in people's consent lists as a no-go, I will still send out an ad and ask them, like, hi, are you okay with this? And then the stoplight system we run with is just send me a green emote if you're okay with it, a yellow one if you want to fade away from it, and the red one if you just don't. If we just not go there. And it has been working wonders so far. I think one of the things that a lot of people forget is that the DM is also a player. Not in the same sense as, you know, the player characters are players, but the DM also has to deal with whatever players come up with. And if the DM has a hard limit, well, you have to deal with it the same way as if a player does. Listening to the people around you, listening to your players, following what they like to do, or what the story they would like to tell, makes you a better storyteller. TTRPGs that are not solo RPGs are collaborative. You're playing with someone else. My third point of making life easier for yourself as a dungeon master, especially when it comes to just setting things up, listening to your players, delegate. You don't actually have to do everything yourself. Sure, some things you want to do yourself because otherwise you might spoil the story for your players, but there are things that you can do and delegate to your players that won't spoil the story for them, and it will make life easier for you. Ask your players for help. If you have a player who's very good at drawing maps, and you need a generic tavern for whatever reason, ask them. Ask them to draw your generic tavern map. That's one map less that you have to do. If you're gonna have, I don't know, random NPCs showing up, shopkeepers, you don't have to create all the shopkeepers yourself. You can ask your players to write shopkeepers for you. So, if you feel like you have taken on a lot, like you have a huge burden on your shoulders as the DM, ask your players for help. Players will come up with things that you have never even thought of. They will come up with ideas that are brilliant, that are excellent, so good that you had no idea about. Because getting blinded by your idea, getting blinded by what you want to accomplish is very easy as the DM. The players have no idea. Like, they know the premise of the game they play in. Or they should, at least, because, you know. If they don't, why? One of the main things that I had to learn was just delegate. Like I mentioned, the long-suffering DM who is bound to be alone and watch what the party does from the sidelines, and it's so bad you can never participate properly, and that I'm saying why. You have beautiful, amazing, really cool players with beautiful, amazing, and really cool ideas. Use them. Ask them. It comes back to that whole prep enough so that you can improvise the rest. And in that prep, know what you can delegate.